comes the call. Could this be Mike from around the world?
Pastor Paul, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, Mike. Thank you for. I'm sorry for the last second change on the phone number here.
Don't worry about it.
All right.
Don't worry about that. I have so many changes at the last second. It's that's understandable.
Mike, wow. We got almost 5,000 people here already. So they're ready to hear what you got to say this week. And there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. And we've got some things happening that I want to throw out for you. One is these cow mutilations. And I did a Patreon on it. There's been, in the last 18 months, there's been 3 different very high-end ranches, and where they have, I'm talking about some of the best cattle for food there is in the world. One ranch has very rare Japanese cattle, and what's happened is these cattle have all been mutilated in these 3 different very highly esteemed ranches, where their tongues were cut out, their ears cut off, the genitals cut off, the womb cut out. No blood anywhere around any of the cattle. No blood. All the blood's been drained. Even one cow's missing its heart. There's no tire tracks. There's no footprints, no boots. And these are in the middle of these big, huge ranches out in the middle of nowhere. How in the world? Who's doing this? What is it? I understand that the FBI is even involved. Maybe it's, I don't know. Mike, what do you know about this?
Well, I know that cattle mutilations go back to the Grecian Empire. Actually, back further than that. Yeah, they had a problem with that in Egypt, in Greece, and just about every other kingdom in history. You can see that they had the same issue. Same thing too. So the eyes missing, tongue missing, rear portions missing. Things of that nature, and we have that same thing today. Do I know what it is? Yeah.
Oh, whoa!
Yeah, I know it's a bold statement, but yeah, I do know exactly what that is. Is it is it something that a person can grasp? No, it isn't. But what it would do, to understand part of what is going on behind that. It's 2 things. One thing is that it's grotesque. It's very grotesque and human and unthinkable. The second part is it involves a very real element to a phenomena that most people think they have a handle of, and they really don't. So, yeah, but I know what that is, and it's been going on for a long time. It is not human beings. It's not us.
Whoa!
And it does go back to the story of very super ancient civilizations, and that story gives way to recently there was a civilization not more than 1,000 years ago that was in America. America was a home base for a direct line to the ancient civilizations. In fact, when I saw some of your guests I saw one of the guests on, there was a link to your show, I believe it was a couple of weeks ago. And I'm not too familiar with everybody out there, right? But I will become familiar with them. But this one gentleman, he did a lot of research with giants, and he did a lot of research with older gentleman. He was on your show. I can't remember his name anyway.
Is it Steve Quayle? Or L.A.
No.
Marzulli? L.A. Marzulli?
L.A. Marzulli
Okay.
was his name.
Yep.
But when I heard this gentleman speaking, he said a couple of things that kind of made my ears stand up, because I know he's on track with something. And America, believe it or not, I know a lot of people look overseas and in South America for things, but believe it or not, Pastor Paul, the large caches of things concerning ancient civilizations of that type are found right here in America, which is probably why we have the Smithsonian in the first place. There's a different layer to the Smithsonian it's not printed in books. It's not normally known. It's not talked about. It's kind of one of those non-subjects, but it has a little more power than certain agencies out there right now. So It is responsible for keeping things. And the Smithsonian is almost like a cover for a real power center of this world. So and they normally take up archaeological finds. They hide a lot of the things because in truth, yes, it would reveal certain biblical aspects to be real and true and other things also, but it would cause real fear, not the fake fear, not
Right.
imagination fear. It will cause real fear.
Right.
For example, let me give you a small example. What if someone were to, what if, time went on and people found out, and they did find a craft, right? Crafted from elements that are forged deep into the earth where the core is, which is nickel, iron, and some other exotic elements, not just nickel and iron. Anyway, what if they did find some craft that was forged to metals we're not able to forge today because we can't get temperatures high enough to do it with, and we don't have that type of radioactive process. But in this craft, you found human body parts, not animal body parts, but human body parts and human organs and human this and human that. Well, that would be awful, correct?
Right.
So that's what the cattle mutilations lead to. It always leads people to human body parts. So it's something that's
So you're
dangerous,
saying
real, and it's a very awful thing. Nevertheless, it's a phenomenon that continues to this very day.
Okay, so we can go to the book of Genesis for just a moment on this, folks. And in Genesis chapter 6, it says, "And it came to pass that when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. And God saw the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of his thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man, whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. But Noah did find grace in the eyes of the Lord." So we have not only mankind's flesh was corrupted, but it looks as if that scripture would say the beast, the fowls, everything was being corrupted. And if you look at today, Mike, everything's being corrupted again through DNA splicing, through CRISPR, through cloning, through mixing the seed of the plants, GMO, everything. So, but I think I'm hearing you say that these cow mutilations are not natural, but are supernatural. Are you saying that we're dealing with something from another dimension? What are you saying?
The realm we can't see, we're actually protected from. I know a lot of people, you have a lot of folks out there that try to dip into the paranormal world. And what they're actually doing is opening doors unto themselves, which they're marking themselves for a later date. This world that we can't see is held back from us. We're protected from it. And so God has separated us from that dimension. But mankind continues by way of mankind's desires. Spirits, or if you call them spirits, these things work by way of desires.
Demons. Maybe.
By desire. So if a person develops a desire for anything of them, any knowledge, if they develop a desire to see them, to interact with them, to know too much about them, what they're actually doing is calling them forward, right? A desire is a door that opens. We're born and we don't have doors open. They're all shut. But over the course of time, through being exposed to many different things, one person opens up lots of doors unto themselves, and they end up dealing with a lot of dark opposition. And so slowly but surely, a person must begin to shut these doors, which is something that, that's in the New Testament about this, which is why Jesus warned that if a person, when he healed a person, he said, go and sin no more. Because if they sin again, their in condition is going to be worse than the first. And if the demons cast out, so on. The other part of that, the story of Lot, don't look back, is that once that door is open, they know exactly who you are and they follow you for the rest of your life. Imagine a person who is born into a sinful world. They're educated to live life by way of deceits. No matter how honest they try to be, they're engaged in things that are foul. And notice that an individual is always under some sort of assault, and they do have resistance. Well, if they give in to that resistance, these things begin their manifestation tricks and everything else. And each individual, these things want, because they desire a door big enough to where they can actually totally corrupt that person. Back in the days of old, when they corrupted flesh physically, and the beast, that what you just read, is that it repented God that he made the animals also. Archaeological digs always seem to uncover dinosaur bones. They're lying about the carbon dating of these dinosaur bones. And they're lying about how they go together. Right. So what they're doing is taking many different bones and constructing something that is scientifically presentable to match a paradigm of evolution. There is no such thing as evolution. We have evidence, but they won't allow people to see what was in the ground before they dug it up, before they extracted everything.
And Mike, this has been going on for about 100 years or so.
For a long time.
Yeah, and you're right. The theory of evolution, Darwin's theory of evolution, is the narrative that the ancient alien guys on History Channel are pushing. It's the narrative that the public school systems in America for the last 30, 40 years have been pushing. It's secular, humanistic in nature. It's against God. It's an antichrist spirit. And you're right. They could put together something and say this was the original man, and they're hiding the bones, hiding the truth. But I'm going to ask you a question. The cow mutilations, why Oregon? I mean, we got the riots in Portland. We got wildfires, not only California and Washington State, but the sky is blood red in Portland. Why cow mutilations important? And these three ranches, if you drew a line to each one, they make a perfect pyramid. I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not. What's your thoughts, Mike? Why Oregon?
Because those are ancient places of worship, and those are all these old traditions people had of worship. All these locations of significant locations, pyramids. Some of the largest pyramids to date are in Ethiopia. They're about 10 times the size of those in Egypt. So Egypt they're not the biggest pyramids anyway. They're all in these locations that correspond to very special parts of the earth. And these things show up all the time in these areas. Here's why. Time does not exist to something spiritual. Time exists to those of us with flesh. It's like we're on a stopwatch, so to speak, and our time runs out. Not to them. So when they develop these habits and these ways and these traditions, they keep them. Mutilations are purposed, highly purposed. They're not accidental. Even if the cow is left behind, they don't care, because all it does is it sparks the interest, and it causes people to come to locations like that to do what? To search for ET to prove their theory right. But what they're really doing when they get excited, because Pastor Paul, you don't know this. You don't know that they just had a group of, I think it was 20,000 people praying to UFOs. Now, hear me out. They were praying to UFOs, and when they had this session, 17 UFOs manifested, and everybody saw them. But a week before that, they did the same thing with over 100,000 people. And the week before that, they coordinated through Facebook, and they did it with over, I believe it was 500,000 people.
Where?
And the month before that, they set up these schools where they teach people how to call UFOs unto themselves. And before that, they had they met with Congress. They set up protocols for this very thing. And so there's a lot of people around the world right now who are in contact with these things. These things appear to people in dreams. They will manifest right in front of your face. They depart supernatural information. They manifest to, to show your friends and stuff. They have all the people. It's almost like they're in a trance because they operate by love. That's what these things say. They operate by love. They're already giving a message to at least 1/4 of humanity, because you would think that would only be in the U.S. Wrong. It is consuming the Middle East. It is consuming South America, all these different continents. You have people there that are following these protocols, and it's growing faster than anything anybody's ever seen. So you're dealing with a subject and with a set of people and with some things that are becoming real, because people, and what they're really doing is they're creating this expansive desire to see something of the unknown. In other words, it's almost like working with a Ouija board, right?
Right.
The Ouija board works by way of intent. It's the heart behind the Ouija board that makes that thing work. And so these people are doing the same thing, calling unto themselves beings from other places. The truth is, demons work by a pretense of a lie in the first place.
Yes.
But they fool people by operating in what we would call our value system, like love and like being fair, one person to another. They utilize these terms so they can mark people, and there are millions of people being marked right now for something horrible that likely won't be reversed. And their governments around the world are highly aware of this, because these groups are being watched. They do not interfere with these groups. These groups are given access to things you wouldn't believe.
Mike, what's amazing to me is you just threw out numbers that are so large, and I just want to welcome all 6,011 of you. This is the largest live audience that we've ever had at one single moment, and we're glad you're with us tonight. We got Mike from around the world with us from Council of Time, and we're talking about cow mutilations, but Mike's taking this thing to another level. He's telling us why it's happening. Mike, you just threw out numbers of 500,000, 100,000 people, 50,000 people, 20,000 people, whatever. But we're being told in church that Illinois can only have 10 people gather for service. California churches are closed, and the rest of America is limited to at least 250. But you're saying that these massive numbers of people are conjuring up demons, calling for aliens. They want to see it. They're literally like Baal. They're calling upon their wicked, and they don't realize they're playing with the demon spirits of Satan, because they've been deceived that there's no God or no devil. Am I right?
That's true. And there's one trait they have that is extremely similar for any Christian. If they ever run across one of these people, they will talk to you with love and compassion. They are intelligent people, but they operate this one way. If you start mentioning Christ, Pastor Paul, a look will come over their faces. And anger you never thought anybody could ever have will begin to surface almost instantly. These people are marked beyond belief. They are, because when you're calling the unknown, right, you don't have to name what you're calling. If it's not something known, like Christ Jesus, like someone like that, if you're not calling on Christ Jesus, you're calling on what is not within his sphere of the kingdom, which is a demon, period. Doesn't matter what it is. It's a demonic entity. And so this year alone, there have been so many manifestations. And now they have COVID-19. Now they have these fires in California where people are in distress. Pastor Paul, there are things happening in California. I'm sure the stories will come out later on. But these things are manifesting or popping into our dimension in droves. They're not coming from other worlds, other planets, so to speak. These things are here that they can further corrupt and solidify that corruption through mankind. And you already have people following them. Because people have become, quote unquote, experts on UFOs, and they are being used as agents of deceit to everybody else.
Wow! Folks, this is Mike from around the world. And of course, you don't want to miss Mike is going to be one of our key speakers in our upcoming um, webinar called Deep State Uncovered. And that webinar will be October 30th and 31st. Please get your tickets. You go to my website at paulbegleyprophecy.com, click right on the main banner. When you see it come across, just click on that banner and get your ticket purchased in advance so we can get these promo codes out to you so you can enjoy. This will be incredible. I mean, Laura Eisenhower, she's the great granddaughter of President Dwight D. Eisenhower. And she's publicly said that she was recruited by the government to be part of the secret space station. She refused because of the, as she knows, the deep secrets of the deep state. And she'll reveal some of those in that webinar. Mike around the world will be talking very candid about the Serpent Brotherhood, okay, and other things. And now you're telling some things, Mike, which that's the first time I've heard this. And I titled this show tonight, "The End is Near," because if you look at all the events going on, folks, right now, they're all pointing to the end of days, the apocalypse, the revelation of Jesus Christ. Mike, let me ask you another question. Last week, you dropped a bomb, and you've already dropped one tonight with this whole story here, and it's true. I believe it. L.A. Marzulli led us to understand these scriptures, and others got involved. But Mike, you've opened up this whole thing that they are conjuring up the demons from another dimension, and they're piercing the veil, and maybe CERN's involved in some degree of it. I don't know, but it's definitely happening on a spiritual level, and that's the spirit of the Antichrist, folks, that will stun the world. Mike, let me ask you a question. You dropped the bomb on us that in 10 days, we're going to be seeing something. Can you tell us, can you elaborate on that?
Well, we have a few things unfolding. Unfortunately, it's going to be quite abrupt. I can give a slight warning. Try not to be overwhelmed, is what I can say, because of this. There's something happening right now, Pastor Paul, that really has been, because this is so strange to say. The fires in California have taken away the attention from something else that was going to be utilized to catapult some people into a brand new way of thinking. So nobody should be shocked from just a happening. Hardly anybody's going to be able to process at the moment. That is supernatural. It's just that it's one of those events of magnitude. It's an event that's going to certainly segue into much bigger things, but nobody should be surprised. And believe me, we haven't dealt with this, Pastor Paul. We haven't dealt with this type of problem, since the 40s. And so,
well, are we talking about another, the 40s was nuclear. The 40s was World War II, nuclear explosions. Also, the 40s was the revealing of Roswell and the extraterrestrial demonic realm started to be really manifesting. Which way are we going here, Mike? What else?
Well, this one is most certainly man-made, right? And a very frustrating thing and a very scary thing. Of course, now I'm telling you this beforehand because of this. Don't ever think it just happened. It didn't just happen. It's been in the oven for a while, right? And often the shock and awe effect is important. If they can't have that shock and awe effect, it just does away with doing it in the first place. But don't be shocked, don't be surprised. But what I would encourage everybody to do is to understand something. These events that are happening around the world, all of them are managed. They're managed events. All of them are managed. And you have certain people working very hard to do exactly what the Lord said they would do on the dark side. And you have the other group who is in tune with the Holy Spirit that will continue to have us prepared internally. That preparation internally is going to take on a brand new, it's going to be center stage here shortly. Pastor, we're not looking at months down the road. We're looking at days.
Tomorrow, Mike.
Things are highly unstable.
Mike, tomorrow's 9/11. I mean, we're an hour and a half on the East Coast from 9/11. It's already 9/11 on the other side of the world. Are you anticipating a potential EMP type event that could stun us, or is it something else?
Well, An EMP is not going to have the effect that most people think an EMP would have. Actually, a test took place last year, right? In these tested areas, no one lost cell phone communication. No one. The people did not know this test took place. They did a test of an EMP, that some of the wave blasts from an EMP. Unfortunately, the only way we're going to know all the effects of an EMP is to actually have one with some of the modern day weapons that they have. But again, a test took place, and people did not notice any effect at all. The electronics that we have today are different than what we had a long time ago. EMPs normally cause high current bursts within, circuits and wires and things of that nature. Well, the electronics architecture they use today is almost like a non-conductive, architecture that uses very extremely low current, right? So it's just different. It's very different. An EMP would not hold that effect. Now, if it's one of the new EMP type weapons and you're dealing with something else, but there are worse things, Basketball. Chemical weapons is going to be an enemy in the near future. Biological weapons, that's going to be an enemy in the near future. Why am I saying this? An EMP is quite complicated to make, right? To have an effect as you want, but not chemical weapons and not biological weapons. The launch capability is there. This is one of the problems with Turkey right now tonight, is because these guys have a nuclear arsenal.
Right.
They're babysitting that nuclear arsenal, but they have confrontations with Greece right now, and those tensions are extremely high. So what if these two nations take what they're doing a step further? And what if Syria gets involved like they were about to a couple of hours ago? So with these high tensions...
Whoa. Wait, Syria was about ready to get involved a couple hours ago. What are we talking about here?
Well, there's a breakdown. You're going to notice a breakdown between Turkey, Syria, and Russia, a big breakdown. And with this breakdown, you're going to have new players that are going to kind of referee what's happening. But that referee tactic is not working. You can't threaten a place who has been beaten down already.
Right.
And so a couple of hours ago, there were some breakdowns in communications. Tensions were pretty high. These two, Syria no longer agrees with the vision of Russia, with the vision of Turkey. They just don't agree. Saudi Arabia, again, is setting itself up to be totally wiped away after a time. But my goodness, these things are so close to an eruption. It's just, it's God's grace that it has not happened yet.
Mike, here's a question. And let me just say, we got 6,700 people watching tonight, by far the largest crowd we've ever had. The end is near. And we're going to ask Mike about that. We're going to ask you, Mike, keep this in the back of your mind, Mike, that there's 7 earthquakes that have happened in the last 7 days that are at least 6.3 or higher. We want to know what's causing that. Is it the waves of energy? Is it the gravitational pull of Planet X, Nibiru? Is it a central sun that some have talked about? Is it the magma moving? Is the core of the Earth? We have reports that the core of the Earth is melting. Hang on to that, Mike, for a minute. Folks, seriously, if you haven't got the Paul Begley app, it's called the New Apocalypse Watch. It's an app. If the folks in the chat room would just throw that into the chat room, the connection for people, you want to get it, and here's why. One, you're going to get updates every day of things happening right around the clock. Literally, it's a clock with the fire of the apocalypse around it, and you click on the hour, and it will give you a list of things happening, updating you of what's going on around the world in this Apocalypse Watch. But also, we're going to be doing video on it very soon. And the first interview I want to do on that will be with Mike Around the World, because it's uncensored, okay? As soon as I'm able to get the video where I can do it, it's coming up very soon. I'm just talking to the software writer that's adding this into the app. We're going to keep adding things into the app. Mike, I would like for you to be my first interview uncensored, and we can get into some of these things, and you can feel free to even go further than you are now. Okay, back to this question, Mike. We realize, as you're saying, the evil, the things that are being plotted out there. Are we on the verge of World War III, or are we on the verge of the rise of the beast? I'm talking about the Antichrist. Do you believe the Antichrist is alive right now, Mike? Is preparations, a Manchurian candidate by the devil, been chosen?
Pastor, I believe that the spiritual component to everything we're seeing right now is so strong. I've never perceived anything this strong before. From our presidency to maneuvers in the Middle East, to even the plight of a believer. The spirit, this is a spiritual war that has escalated so much because behind each movement, each attempt at anything, there is opposition. There's a spiritual tension I've just not noticed before. And there are too many things lining up with the Word of God. Certainly on my end, concerning one of the things about prophecy that really gets me, I know a lot of people, they look at the events, right? Just to let you know, the events are one thing, and that is they're always going to happen like that. But one thing that gets me, and one thing that I can often track pretty easily, is how people become exactly what the Bible said they would be.
Yeah.
In prophecy. And that is amazing to me. That means people right now are having, you see one thing on television, Pastor Paul, what you see on TV it is by no means what's actually going on behind the scenes.
Right.
People are they're at their tipping point. They really are. They're at their tipping point. They're turning on each other like you wouldn't believe. They have thrown each other under the bus like you wouldn't believe. And even Christians, in the plight of a Christian, not only are they having a hard time keeping their flame lit, being excited about the end times, but there's an assault mechanism that's taking place on Christians by way of health, by way of their home. They're just undergoing some brand new things here, right? That they haven't really dealt with. And it's something that Christians are having to contend with. Of course, I know part of the purpose behind that is it's a good purpose, not a bad one. But these new conditions, they certainly indicate that we're in a brand new time, something we've not been in before, because everything they have tried that was like the times of old doesn't work. It's like a brand new set of devils out there. And pertaining to the beast, he certainly has a spiritual army rising, Pastor Paul. And it seems to coincide with all the events of the earth. And in fact, in proportion to man's lack of morals, the earth seems to respond in kind. It's getting worse and worse, and it's keeping pace with the hearts of people. And as they get worse and worse, so is the earth getting worse and worse.
That's true.
It's one of those things that's very difficult to ignore. And plans are not working out for anybody. It's just the oddest and craziest thing, except for those who belong to Christ. So, all those who are outside of Christ, I believe that they'll go into such a chaotic type of atmosphere, right? And I'm telling you now, things are going to start backfiring so bad to those who are outside of Christ. They're going to start backfiring. But then, as a Christian, these assaults and stuff we have on us, they seem to be quite clear to me. I believe that the Lord wants us, right? We've had our time where we were in school and we were allowed to play and we were allowed to explore. But now what the Lord is doing is almost like he's saying, apply what you have gleaned. Apply what you have learned.
Right.
Live by what you have learned. Because now is that time as we stand up. It just so happens to be the time everybody talked about 7 to 10 years ago. It just so happens to be that time that, all the prophecies are pointing to. And it's undeniable. The more you see it, the more undeniable it is. The army of the beast, I had always, from reading, from seeing, the beast can't rise by himself.
No,
right?
no.
He's going to have his support system. All I can see is a support system rising that is ungodly. I mean, it's to the point now, Pastor Paul, I have seen individuals. I overheard this, and I hope I never get to overhear it again, but there were some people of whom other folks in a community they look up to because they're bishops. These two individuals are bishops. But you overhear them laughing and joking about faith.
They don't believe? Are you saying they don't believe?
No, they don't believe. They don't believe. They have turned, it's almost like they turned Christianity into just a pure thing that people expect, and then you do good at it, and they're laughing and joking about it. Not only that, but wasn't it a couple of weeks ago, yet another pastor who pastors a church, told his congregation that he did not believe that he
Yes.
could be pastor because he does not believe. And this keeps happening over and over, but I believe it is just what the Bible said it would be. That, you know what it says in the Bible, when a person will, anything said, done, or said in secret will be shouted from the rooftops.
Yes.
I believe that's each one of us. As the Lord gets closer, he uttered one thing. He said, there'll be no lying tongue before him, right? So as his time draws close, I believe that people are losing their ability to lie and to cover up. And they don't care, because the atmosphere of the world is so raunchy. You can say anything you want to say, and people don't care.
And they don't blush. You know what it said in the book of Jeremiah, I believe the 5th chapter, it said that that the prophets would prophesy falsely, and the people loved to have it so, and that the things that were being done, it said the people did not even blush. And isn't that the time? Folks, we got 7,005 people with us tonight, by far the largest crowd we've ever had live at one time on our YouTube channel. We got Mike from around the world with us tonight from Council of Time. The end is near. And what we're saying is the beast kingdom is rising. And as you said, Mike, one man doesn't just rise up and take over. This has been going on for centuries. Actually, longer than that, okay? But since Christ, this has been a movement, a Luciferian movement. Remember what Lucifer said. He said he would exalt himself above God, and he said, I will sit among the congregation of the north. I will be the most high. And it was the prophet Isaiah who said, oh no, you won't. You will be clinging to the sides of the pit as you're falling into an endless fall of endless darkness, into an endless fire for endless eternity. And this prophetic word, you can read for yourself. I'm paraphrasing, but it's in Isaiah chapter 14. Mike, are we going to start in 10 days? Is something going to happen with bloodshed? Have we got, remember 1938, that's when Adolf Hitler, he'd already taken over Austria. He had already taken over another one of these smaller countries, and he met during a very prophetic night in a weird moon. I forgot which kind of moon that one was. I don't know if that was the blood moon or blue moon or what, but it was in 1938 with his top people. This is according to Father Martin, who said in that meeting, he told the people, it is time now for bloodshed. It is time for the bloodshed. What's going to happen, Mike? What do you mean in 10 days? Is this a beast kingdom move?
Well, you just said that guy, that individual said it's time for blood, right?
Right.
Now think about this. He had to set himself up to that position first. He had to have a crowd to listen to him first.
Right.
So that when he made that declaration, they would follow Pastor Paul. We're right there again. But we're right at the point again where one man can make a declaration tonight. And I can guarantee you it would overwhelm law enforcement and half the reservists. You're saying
that if the beast himself, if the man of sin, the lawless one, the wicked one, the son of perdition in 2 Thessalonians 2, there's enough of an infrastructure built, there's enough groups built, there's enough spiritual wickedness and demonic forces out there that if the right man, possessed by Lucifer, speaks and says it's now, you say they would rise?
Oh yeah, because they're looking for, this is the first time in history that many people, I mean many people, 3/4 of the population are looking for a supernatural entity of any type. This is the first time in history, 3/4 of humanity are looking for some supernatural entity, and they're ready to accept it of any type. This did not exist 50 years ago. It didn't. It exists now. And if something were to appear that was stronger than man, they are ready to say yes. Not only that, Pastor Paul, but this is also the first time in history that some of the implants within the body of Christ have been so bold. They're coming out, they're unzipping like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
They're like, they cannot keep the zipper on their sheep's costume. And what they're doing is, it takes, if you had a meeting that was high in the spirit, these things will show up and blow up. They're just blowing up like bombs. They no longer desire to hide. They have built in numbers that are astounding. I know that by chatter. Anybody who can do Google Analytics They know about programming, C++, Java, and so forth and so on. They can do analytics and find out about conversations because Google is embedded in just about everything. You can do chatter tracking, which means you can actually put in a key phrase as far as a conversation and see how many people are talking about the conversation for it or against it. And you can find out a general census of who is who. And believe me, it goes along with politics. It goes along with attendance, even at church. And if someone were to do one right now on those who are in the body of Christ, who are against it, you would find an astounding number of individuals.
Well, I believe that. I believe that.
They're ready to tear it down.
I believe that, Mike. I believe that, Mike. I can tell you, I've been preaching the gospel now for 36 years. People, back when I first started, I was 22 years old. And in my 20s, I was preaching revivals everywhere. Listen, nobody disrespected. People, if they weren't saved, if they was a sinner, they'd say, "Hey, I'm not right with God, but I'm not going to come against God or come against the church." They respected the man of God or whatever. Today, it's people in the church, people who attend churches all over the world. Really bad in America, and in Europe, it's horrible. They have no regard for God. They don't believe. There's no fear. There's no faith. There's nothing. They don't care. And what's shocking me on the YouTube in the 10 years I've been on YouTube, the people that have turned away from the gospel and are spending all their time on the internet tearing down the church, attacking the body of Christ, calling out people, making stuff up, going against Israel. I don't even understand it, Mike. I've never been in such a situation. Does this mean the end is near, Mike? Is the end near? I'm not talking about asteroids at this moment. I'm saying, is the end near because Jesus said, "When I come, will I find any faith left?" Have we become this wicked?
Oh, yes. And you know what, Pastor Paul, it's something that is unavoidable. It is one of those. I know that everybody in this generation who is a Christian was born with a strong belief in it, with a strong respect of the living God. And that means even when I was young, there were certain things. If I saw a minister walking, I knew right there. I had a fear of the Lord in me without even knowing details of the Lord. People were born that way.
Yeah.
They were also born with prophecy in them. In other words, while everybody was watching everything on television, that would bore those who were born with prophecy in them. But when these folks heard about prophecy, they would get excited.
Yeah.
Which is why they run when something happens. They got to find out because they get excited because the coming of the Lord is close. But nothing has changed from that. What has happened is the bitterness is starting to settle in. The realization that prophecy is real, prophecy is true. And what we see are elements standing up. Pastor, in the Middle East right now, something called the Sand King is beginning to stand up.
Who?
The Sand King was always to come from Turkey. It was always to come from Turkey. And I'm sure that this will go out. This is not just merely a person, but a supernatural person. Let's put it that way. Kind of like in Iran, there were quite a few occasions where a green cloud would follow the leaders of Iran and then would go away. There's a place in Turkey right now you can't get near. You couldn't get near it if you wanted to. In fact, that area is quarantined because a bus full of children went in that area and they never came back out of that area. So nobody's going in that area. That's in Turkey. It's an evil thing. But more and more people are beginning to sense, and certainly U.S. soldiers are starting to go to places and they're beginning to talk about it. U.S. soldiers are talking about these areas that they don't desire to go into, not because of combat, but because it's just pure evil out there. So you have these areas that are spreading. It's also in the U.S., you have people ready to follow, right? I don't know if anybody's noticed, but in these groups that are walking around in America, there's a lot of coordination going on right now that has nothing to do with the protests. But you have, remember we talked about a long time ago, there were about, I believe it was 800,000 were marked as cells within the U.S. They were not accounted for. That was one of the reasons that people don't know this, but I'll go ahead and say it. One of the reasons Trump was talking about the wall when he first became president is because he was aware of what was in America. Now, you can't explain that to your average person. And whoever was going to talk about the wall was going to look like a bomb, period. They were going to just capture the heat. But if you had sleeper cells in America and you confirmed their chatter conversations and everything else, and they were just waiting for an order, if you had that in the U.S. in every single city, if you knew that they were embedded in every single town, what would you do? You would have to start where everybody else would start. You would have to start with those who are undocumented. But unfortunately, you can't find them. They're so embedded right now, you can't find them. They found a couple that were doctors, surgeons. And they found a couple who they were running 2 of the nuclear power plants. These guys have been uprooted from their current positions and thrown out. So we have a very bad problem here, but not only here, right? Even if we got rid of the problem here, we still have to face Canada and Mexico, which are also embedded with these things. The chatter is so high, Pastor Paul, as far as within the next 3 days, the chatter is so high concerning these states that we're in, that we know there's a plan about to take place. Now, it will likely be distasteful, and it will likely have to do with more than one paradigm, meaning one could be with war, because we know we sit at the door of war right now. We know that one mistake, most wars have begun by mistakes. They're not as intentional as one.
Who has their finger, Mike? Because there's so many people, so many nations and kingdoms rising up and threatening each other. What 3 nations right now in your mind has their finger on the trigger?
Russia, China. China's going to do it through proxy, through North Korea. They stopped talking about North Korea for a reason. It's becoming quite impulsive in that area. And then you have India, which is which all of a sudden came up on the radar because they're being pressed politically into a cauldron of sorts, right? They are under great duress right now. And it seems like no one wants to help them out. So they're going to have to do what they have to do. And then you have those who have made statements. The day this deal news came out, countries began to talk. And they said, should a global war break out, we're going to affirm our loyalty is with Islam. I'm just telling you, this is what these guys said. So that, because you have an enemy who is against any Western influence being in the Middle East, whether it be by peace, whether it be by trade, whatever the case may be, they are there to disrupt it. These elements have gone quite silent, except for the movement of lots of money is taking place, purchases. China, nobody can interfere with China. That's why they're so dangerous, because China is shipping things all over the place, Pastor Paul. China has embedded itself in just about every single nation by way of microchips and everything else. There's no way we can take out all the embedded microchips in all the devices that we utilize in America, in Canada, Mexico, wherever the place is, which means they can effectively shut us down. They know they have something called a kill switch on most of the electronics that we have, which is why the military had to actually go back and they had to spend an unreasonable amount of money on undoing this, but it's quite embarrassing. So we're looking at these super high tensions, not to mention these groups also have something planned within the next 6 days. I don't know what the plan is.
Okay, so Mike, when you said the 10 days, and we got people begging for the 10 days, and I know I hate to keep bringing it up. It's the 3rd time I'm going to go here, but it sounds like you were saying there was a 10-day period, and we're about 7 days into that. You're saying that in the next 3 days there's something planned big time, and in the next 6 days there's something else planned that's very significant. Are you talking war? Are you talking conjuring up demons again and begging the aliens to come? Are you talking about, look, I just looked at the COVID numbers. You're the guy back on January 10th who said 100,000 Americans are going to die. And he said a ton of people are going to die in China in March. And I'm thinking, what is he talking about? And then on the 17th of January, you came back and said, I have to correct that. Not 100,000, 200,000 Americans, or maybe 300. I just looked tonight, and we're at 191,769 in the United States. And another number that's really frightening to me, I think, is India has, out of nowhere, has all of a sudden now jumped to 4.4 million cases. They just passed Brazil, who's at 4.2, and the United States is at 6.3. And I know right now, India, I've been there twice, they don't have the infrastructure to go around testing people to get the numbers high like the United States. They have nothing. So for these guys to have 4.4 million cases, it means people are flooding hospitals and doctors and clinics, dying of sickness.
Yeah.
It must be unbelievable. Mike,
Yeah.
3 days, your 10 days situation, is there anything you can say that people can grasp with care? I say, huh? How can people prepare for these 10 days you're talking about, which about 3 days are left or so?
These are coordinated people problems, coordinated people issues. Pastor Paul, I know this is going to sound strange. Everybody can see where these fires, the troubles are breaking out in California on a consistent basis, correct?
Right.
Remember where these fires are. Never forget them. I'm talking about the accidental fires. I'm talking about the some of these the fires that nobody knows how they start. Remember where they are. You know what? It's often, mankind is given warnings because no one will up and just uproot where they are to go somewhere else. But we have an issue. I know there's an issue out of the ground going right through parts of California.
Well, yeah, there's fires. There's fires that started along San Andrea fault line, and I've noticed that some of these fires are running along major fault lines.
They have to pay attention. That's more of a message than anything else, and each individual has to. They can't follow the words of another person. They've got to follow the truth of the Spirit. They've got to learn to seek collectively for an answer for real. Here's why: our Earth is not stable. Underneath the crust of the earth is not stable at all. It is moving. It is unstable. It is shifting and changing. And it's going to cause some real damage in a very, very short time.
Is the core of the earth melting? I mean, I've heard this before, but is it heating up? Is the core heating up hotter than it was 10 years ago, let's say?
Well, the core is normally 10,800 degrees Fahrenheit. This is estimated. This is all theoretical, by the way. And they do this because there's a certain pressure at the core, right? And they approximate the temperature being 10,800 degrees Fahrenheit. Same temperature, same or about same temperature as the sun. All this is estimated because of the nickel and the iron and what it takes to melt and keep nickel and iron at some melted constant. They add in the pressure, and so they estimate these things. The radiation that's coming into this planet, which will probably double within, our radiation is about to spike big time. I give that within a 10-day gap also, or a 6-day gap. It's about to spike, but it will maintain itself for a little bit and then go away because we're having inbound. You know, these things are happening to us coming inbound.
Okay, now wait. Is the radiation going to go up because of what's coming from the ground, or is this coming from space?
From outer space, and it will also affect the sun. There's going to be any of this radiation that penetrates coming into our solar system is also going to affect the sun.
Well, that's from the
we're about to have an increase in it.
So this sounds like from the binary system. This sounds like the waves of not just only waves of energy, but waves, cosmic radiation waves.
Oh yeah, galactic cosmic rays are exotic radioactive particles that come at high speed into our solar system. They're about to really spike. They're going to spike and maintain themselves for probably, it's spiking consistent for about a day and a half. Not had that before. So when they start to hit, they're going to sustain themselves, but just likely going to cause a reaction out of the sun. Anytime this happens, it then all this leftover material is attracted to the north and south poles of this earth. It goes inside because this is such a large amount. It's going to cause a severe heat differential inside of the earth, which means we're going to have crustal movement following that event.
So are we being squeezed,
crustal movement.
Mike? Are we being squeezed from the top and from the inside? I mean,
yeah, we're being inside the earth is building up pressure outside of the earth. We're having an increase in density of particles that are pressing on the ionosphere, so we're being compressed from the top and from the bottom. You know what that means? Something is going to snap and break, which is why we see the increase in earthquakes, in volcanism, in all these things that are happening on the surface of the earth. They're really about to increase. We haven't seen a large-scale increase in what? Well, we haven't seen a large-scale increase. Now we get to see a large-scale increase. Now it's about to happen. And we're days away from one event that would start the countdown from that kickoff. So you're looking within a 15 to 30 day period of some large scale activity taking place on the earth. This also means the atmosphere's ability to hold moisture is going to be changed big time. What that will do to the weather, I'm not sure yet. But we're looking at a severe change in our weather phenomena within that same time. These are large scale changes. We have never had large scale changes. I'll say it again. We have never recorded large-scale changes on the face of the earth since we have begun recording things. We've not seen this. And we only have, it's within a dozen days, the earth starts its, that charging mechanism begins. And for the sun also, what will it do? It's going to do much more than it's ever done before. One of the concerns that I have, and some other agencies do, are with volatile chemicals. Will this actually, because these high-speed particles will actually breach certain parts of the atmosphere, will it knock the nuclei out of certain elements in the earth and cause them to all of a sudden be combustible again? So that means any factory out there that deals with chemicals, you could see an alarming rise in explosions and problems.
We've seen this, and we've seen this before, Mike, over the years.
Yes.
And you've called it each time you would call it, and then it would happen. They'd blow up in Texas, they'd blow up in China, they'd blow up everywhere. So you're saying in the next few days we're going to start seeing another multiple factories and chemical plant explosions.
As soon as this energy comes in and the earth absorbs it, that's the countdown clock. But I'll say it again, nobody has ever recorded this much coming in at one time. No one has ever recorded this. No one has ever seen this. So this is a first time we're going to go through this dense of, or this magnitude of energy being absorbed by the earth and the sun. So, this could be disastrous. It really could be disastrous. The process begins as soon as the magnetosphere begins to absorb it. Now, some scientists already are saying that our magnetosphere could really go through some disruptions within the next dozen days. Now, you add the human factor in this. Suppose they do have something planned, some large-scale violence planned in certain cities or some type takeover. Pastor Paul, don't ever think for a moment that humanity is going to be settled with being able to protest, to go against the law, that they're going to stop there. Don't ever think that. They're going to build up momentum until they begin to become an authority. You got to remember that. These things are unavoidable. A Christian's point of view in these things is we got to be careful not to be wrapped up in all of what they're doing, but to keep our morals and our prayers going, because of all times in history, we need them now. We're looking at large-scale events, both from humanity. We're looking at, war things taking place within at least 6 days. Real tensions, real things are happening. I can't stress enough. This is the first time we've been in this position. We're absolutely going to go through this, and people need to really make it up in their minds now. They need to put themselves in a position to say, what would my relationship be with Christ if all these things were happening? They need to start thinking in very real terms, not running away. Christians do not run away from things. Christians obey the Lord. And so those instructions must come from the Lord.
Mike,
the instructions can't come from anywhere else, because man is going to run away from trouble or try to defeat it. But the Lord may have something different planned. So hearing the Lord is going to be key.
I hear the urgency in your voice. I think this is the most candid you've been in a long time. Folks, there's 7,723 people listening right now live, watching live. It's an amazing moment. The end is near. In the next 3 days, next 6 days, within the next week. Mike, you'll be back with us next Thursday night, Lord willing.
I will.
We'll have a lot more understanding of what's going on by then. It sounds like. And where's the most dangerous spot in the world right now, Mike? My last question to you tonight is, where is the most dangerous spot? Whether it be war, whether it be explosions, whether it be the earth, whether it be incoming waves of energy, where is the most dangerous spot in the world?
Well, right now, Pastor, I'm watching Colombia and Venezuela big time right now.
Wow.
And again, of course, once things begin in that province, that's a severe destabilization point. So Colombia I'm looking at Colombia because of celestial issues. I'm looking at Venezuela because of earth-based issues, something underneath the sea. So we could see a real ramp up in activity.
We've got 6 storms in the Atlantic right now, Mike. Let me ask you. We got one that's organized off the coast of Florida, and then we got five storms that have come off the coast of Africa. All of them are organizing, and they're all headed toward the East Coast somewhere, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. I don't know. The odds are 2 or 3 of them are going to turn into significant hurricanes. I mean, is there something about the weather conditions that's causing this? I mean, we've had unbelievable typhoons. My son and his family just went through 3 typhoons in 6 weeks. I mean, and the monsoons have broke records. The wildfires in California are the worst ever. This is 3 years in a row. Mike, what's going on?
Yeah, the water temperatures are so hot, and you have superheated water being released in so many places in our southern hemisphere that the storm tracks are they're plowing through. They will possess a lot of energy they're working with. This with atmospheric pressure differences, going up above our heads. We're dealing with all this at one time, and this is really causing a atmospheric change. Again, we're going to reach a point where our jet stream reverses. And that has to be watched. Some of the colder temperatures that were in Greenland going up to Baffin Bay, they have changed. It's warming up there. Insect migrations, rodent migrations, and everything has been taking place for the last year. Specifically in the last 3 months, we've been having a lot of insect migration. Mold is things that mushrooms and mold, and we're about to have a mildew issue in America because of humidity levels going above what they're supposed to be. It's just not going to be a good thing. Vegetation will begin to take over in certain parts of the East Coast. But the temperatures will be the weather extremes will be just like Colorado. Colorado can see the 4 seasons in one day, right? So imagine the entire USA that way, where you don't know what to prepare for weather-wise. That's going to really wear down on our infrastructure. That with new fault lines forming, the sinkholes are about to begin again in a very bad way. In other words, instead of having a sinkhole that swallows a house, think of a sinkhole that swallows a neighborhood. Because as the earth continues to misshapen, we're going to have large scale happenings all over the place. And when people see this, of course, they're going to come up with excuses. But I'm telling you now, the earth is about to become very misshapen, and it's becoming very, very malleable from the inside out. That's a lot of movement that is just going to be unbelievable topside.
Mike, that's it. Okay. When you swallow the neighborhoods with the sinkholes, I'm done tonight. Mike, I'm going to let you go. I can see you next Thursday night. We look forward to hearing what you got to say, and we're going to be in prayer till you get back.
Okay, Pastor Paul, it's always a pleasure to speak to you. Prayer is a good thing in this day and age. Certainly, Lord knows we need it.
God bless you, Mike. Thanks for coming on. I'll see you next Thursday.
Okay, God bless you.
All right, bye.